gleaming white. And you go into the sarcophagus, and if you have a person in there who's part of the priesthood, who's trained and has a special crystal they would use, you go through this horrifying ordeal where all of your negativity is shot up in your face. All the things you've done to hurt people, all the things you've done that cause pain, you have to face off against that, and it's a terrifying nightmare. But if you can burn off your karma in this nightmare and forgive yourself for what you've done, then you literally come out of that sarcophagus as a being who has ascended. Now, the Napoleon Bonaparte went in there and laid down in the sarcophagus overnight when France was in Egypt. And he had a terrifying experience. And he said, I will never go near that pyramid again. What's happening to us as a planet is akin to the pyramid initiation. So, Alan, this gets back to your original question, which is, it seems like the train is running off the tracks.
Yeah.
It seems like the Illuminati are winning.
Yeah.
What's actually happening is that a certain amount of negativity is being permitted to occur so that we as a planet are getting that pyramid nightmare. Planet-wide, we're seeing the negativity, all the things that we didn't bother to look at, that we didn't care enough, that we weren't busy enough, we were lazy, we were watching television, we were drinking beer, we didn't pay attention to the stuff that was going on all around us, we didn't pay attention to a Luciferian cult advertising their Lucifer symbols in our faces in movies and music videos and the Olympics ceremonies and the Grammy Awards. All this stuff has been going on. Now we're seeing it and we're like, oh my God. And that's part of what cracks the shell that we built around our hearts, leading to the consciousness awakening that is predicted to happen in all these ancient cultures. These extraterrestrials told us what they were going to do. They put it in these prophecies. We lost touch with them. But the prophecies are real, and the electromagnetic changes in our solar system is just a physical effect of this vibrational shift, which is ultimately activating our consciousness. And in order to get the healing, we have to throw up. So if you throw up, you'll feel better. And that's what we're seeing right now on Earth. It's pretty ugly, but
yeah,
it's a necessary part of the process.
Definitely, we are going through it, all right. It's pretty bad. But Corey, what's your take on it?
Excuse me. Well, as far as the dates, when I was in the programs, I had seen the dates that they had predicted a lot of this to happen were between the year 2018 and the year 2023. And apparently things sped up. Something happened. I haven't myself put out the year 2017. I'm very careful not to put out dates.
Yeah, you have to be very careful with that. Yeah.
Just to be clear.
Yeah.
And in the secret space program, the people that are the scientists that were studying this, they were actually going out and looking at these energetic clouds and studying them, and they're more nuts and bolts. They weren't doing all the research that David was doing. So they didn't quite know exactly what was going to happen to people. A lot of them thought that maybe people that they consider starseeds and wanderers, and we can get into what that means later, we're going to maybe kickstart and start to have some ascended powers before everyone else.
These are the starseeds you're talking about, the people who are awake and spiritually aware.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
And they didn't know if everyone was going to start to have this awakening and shared consciousness ability quicker than others, or if it was just everyone was going to have it at once. So from my perspective, I think this is one of the reasons they guided me towards David Wilcock, was he had done all of this type of homework, and he had a lot of other experience that I did not. And there's a lot of stuff that, a lot of his information has gone hand in glove with what I experienced. And it's been really amazing to have the conversations with him about some of this information.
Okay. Now, talking about we mentioned before we went live about the Planet X Niraboo, and we know there's a load of PSYOP out there. As one of our guests said to us, which I think is quite appropriate, if you bury the truth in a barrel full of lies, it's very hard to find. And obviously, there's so much PSYOP out there. People, you don't know whether you're coming or going because there's so many people talking about different things. I mean, even if you want to look at flat Earth and all that kind of stuff. So just passing that back over to David. David, you wanted to mention the Planet X Niraboo thing. Give us your take on that.
Well, my personal impression of this does have some degree of emotional charge because I originally did an article that was an interview for Drunvalo Melchizedek's magazine. At the time, he had Spirit of Mott. It was a subscription-based magazine. And so my co-author for the first book that came out about me dealt with the idea that I have this stunning facial similarity to the noted American psychic Edgar Cayce. And it goes beyond that because the planets at the time of his birth and the planets at the time of my birth, there's absolutely no denying that they have an astonishing connection. And that connection is so exact that I was literally born in the only time in a 127-year period after Edgar Cayce's death where that alignment would occur. Now, Cayce was not just an ordinary guy. He would lie down, be put into a deep state of trance, and there's 14,000 documented readings that he did where in trance, unconscious, he began speaking with omniscient intelligence. And whatever was talking through him always used the term we, not I. So it appeared to be a group of beings of some kind. This was before the UFO era. Cayce died in 1945, so nobody ever asked him about flying saucers. But it was very clear that whoever was speaking through him had some sort of administrative, managerial role in the spirit world over our planet, that they were running the show, more or less. So I come back in, apparently having been Edgar Cayce in my past life. We can debate whether reincarnation exists, but those who believe it does say that there's a facial similarity as one of the core aspects of this, and character similarities. And so I started to have the same types of experiences that Edgar Cayce was having, which led to, in November 10th, 1996, having some kind of higher intelligence speaking through me, which took the form of, I'm getting notifications. Are you guys texting me or something? Am I talking too much?
No.
Okay.
Not from us.
Making sure.
Not from us.
I'm getting little texts on Skype here, so somebody's trying to text me. Anyway, it is a very complex, weird story, and I'm just trying to lay out the basics for everybody. So what happened is I had this guy come forward, and he pushed me to want to write a book about this. I did not want to have a book come out about me being Edgar Cayce, possibly, in my past life. But I will say that beginning in November 1996, I would start to wake up in the morning, and I would hear words in my mind, and there was a very specific protocol that goes back to remote viewing, which I had read about from Art Bell Show. There were various guests, some of whom had written books that taught you how to do remote viewing. I learned it extensively, I practiced it, and I got to a point where I could pass words through my mind and be in a deep enough state of trance that those words were not affected by my personality. I did not know what I was saying, and they often were encrypted. They would use weird dreamlike language that my conscious mind couldn't understand when I was deep under trance, but then later on I'd be able to make sense out of it. And just a bizarre example, which is kind of unflattering, was that one of the things they would do if they wanted to talk about me and they wanted to sneak it past my mind is they would use the feminine gender and they'd use the name Christina. And then I realized they're talking about the Christ consciousness, the Christ self. So Christina is going to da-da-da-da, and she thinks da-da-da-da. So, you say this stuff, you're so far out, your body wants to fall asleep so bad, and you just have to keep yourself right on the edge of falling asleep. That's the trick. So you're just blah, 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 blah. You don't even know what you're saying. You just blah, 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 blah. Then you go back later on and you transcribe it, And you go, oh, my goodness gracious. Because what would happen is I'd have a stack of cassettes on my desk. I still have all of them. And back then there was no MP3 recorders. We're talking 1996. And I would sit down maybe 2-3 weeks after I dictated onto these cassettes, and I'd transcribe them. And they would be describing what happened to me right before I sat down at my desk, which was astonishing. And it happened over and over again. I'll give you one example. There's many examples I like to use. I lived right next to Woodstock in upstate New York. And I went down Route 28 and I went to Woodstock. And I went to this kind of hippie deli. There's a guy in there who starts talking about Joseph Campbell. And he's describing how Campbell says that religions are like different pieces of software to access the same intelligent universe, which ultimately is all one and we're all part of the same thing. So religion is just software. So I have this whole conversation with him. I go back home. First thing I do is go up to my bedroom because I always want to hear what the tapes are going to say. Sit down, pop the tape in the recorder, hit play, start transcribing, and it's my voice talking on behalf of these beings. And the first thing that my voice says is, we are now downloading new software. That frickin' blew me away. So when you have these experiences, and I'm not saying this happened once or twice, I'm saying this happened hundreds of times. One of the very first clients I had lived in Tennessee, and he got a tape from me in the mail, not knowing what was going to be on it. He'd woken up from a dream that morning where he had a tripod, and one of the 3 legs of the tripod wouldn't stay straight. The first thing that happens when the reading starts talking to him on the tape is it says, the tripod represents that you're not able to support yourself at this time spiritually and you have a shaky foundation. And he was so blown away because how could this be possible? How could they have known what my dream was? And I didn't have this happen once or twice. I had this happen many, many hundreds of times. And I became convinced that there was a directed intelligence speaking through me. I never in a million years expected that they would actually show up, but that does appear to be what's happened. So to get back to the Planet X question, the first debut with my co-author of what became the book, The Reincarnation of Edgar Cayce, our grand debut was in this interview that he did with me that was published somewhere around September 7th, 2001. Now, why is that date interesting? It's 5 days or 4 days before September 11th. This article comes out, and it talks about the changes in our solar system. September 11th hits, and everybody needs good news. Everybody needs to hear something positive. Somebody enterprisingly took that article, stripped it of all the stuff about my connection to Edgar Cayce, stripped it of all my references where I actually had links to these things, and then said that all of the data that I'd put in there about the changes in our solar system were only done by Russian scientists, which wasn't even true. I'd already been backing it up with NASA back then. That article went so viral that there were hundreds of thousands of websites that actually had linked to it, and on the email back in those days, it reached millions and millions of people, and nobody knew that I had written it or any of the greater context of where it came from. And then the Planet X people came in, and they took that data, and they used it to support their hypothesis, which is that all the changes I talked about and very clearly delineated that it was caused by us going into a galactic energy zone. They said, no, all this is because a planet is coming into the solar system, and on May 15th, 2003, we're all going to die. And, of course, that didn't happen. So that was my attempt to answer your question, and I'm gobbling up gobs of time here. But I feel like since this is our debut interview and we've never come forward before, this backstory really fills in what happened to me and the fact that these beings had apparently been in contact with me for 20 years. I never expected they were going to show up. And it's become a very, very interesting story, a very rapidly evolving story.
So you don't think Planet X or Nibiru is going to be coming in or have any effect on the planet, which is what a lot of people are saying at the moment. Because there are a number of people out there talking about it, and people saying, look, there's photos, there it is, there it's coming in,